Welcome back to Razmafzar TV. I'm really happy to have Bede back on our channel. It has been a while. So Bede, how are you?
I'm doing quite well. Getting in some archery practice every week, twice a week, so I'm feeling a lot better.
Very
And
good.
yeah, it's nice to get out. And it's been our spring started off very warm,
Yeah.
so we've had days of 27 to 30 degrees.
Ooh.
But today it's raining and I think it's about 18 degrees or 17 degrees outside. It's 20 degrees in here, so it's not that. Oh, sorry, it's 19 degrees in here. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's we've had some very nice dry days, but they had incredibly strong winds. I went to archery a couple of weeks ago, and there are only two of us shooting on the experienced archer side. The beginners were all there because the wind was so strong and it was blowing across the field that people were worried their arrows were going to end up in the next target. But yeah, weather's been unusual, put it that way. But it hasn't been terrible, so I can't complain. Hopefully, what I'm trying to do is try out some new things that will be useful for other archers. Experiments, I suppose, working out how certain things were done and what things cause problems and that kind of stuff. Because long term, with all the material that we've translated, or you've done the translating and I've done the trying to explain, on Persian archery, we've got more than enough material to write a how-to book.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've done the historical stuff.
Yeah.
And turning it into something practical that a person could go and pick up a copy of the book and sit down with it and with a little bit of help actually learn the techniques. And I think there's a lot more interest than there was 20 years ago or 30 years ago. Then there was only, half a dozen people in the world that were interested. But now, lots of younger people with good reflexes and better fitness are starting to get interested. And that's going to make a big difference because the same thing that happened to English archery when people started shooting very heavy bows and realized that you can do it, and they suddenly, changed their attitudes.
Yes.
Because when I was a 20-year-old, nobody thought English longbowmen ever shot anything heavier than 60 to 70 pounds. They just thought, yeah, well, that's all a human being can do. And even that was considered to be a bit over the top. But then things started to come out. And of course, Persian and Turkish sources already had been talking about, we've seen in the translations, we're already talking about very heavy bows like that. And the Chinese were actually shooting them into the 20th century. So it's important that people try things out and not just accept what experts of 50 years ago said, because 50 years ago, they didn't have the information we have now.
Absolutely. Today, we are going to talk about a very important topic, and a very important topic and a fascinating topic is about Sikh weapons. Our member Usman, who is from England, London, went to the Wallace collection, took many pictures, made many videos, which we shared on our YouTube channel, also social media like Instagram and so on, Facebook. Today, we are going now for the first time with Bede to talk about them first, and I'm going to share the slides. After that, Bede is going to show some weapons from India, which are very beautiful. So let me just start to share and take a look at them. So, okay, very good. So let me just go here. This is the Char Aine, former armor, which has a portrait of Guru Nanak. And we are going later to see close-ups of that. So the Wallace collection says made in Punjab, late 18th to early 19th century. It's made of patterned crucible steel. Of course, you can also say gilded structures, decorations on it. So this is, of course, a charine. And then the Wallace collection says the breastplate, means sine band as we say it, right, has a portrait in gold of Guru Nanak, the first in line of 10 spiritual teachers of the Sikh faith. And okay, and the prayers, we will see that the border of this charine, of this armor, has prayers and supplications in Gurmukhi script that serve to grant the wearer protection from death and success in the battlefield. A very important item. Let me just go here. Do you come back here? This is Guru Nanak. You see that? I made a bigger picture so we can take a look at that. It's beautiful, isn't it? Really beautiful.
Oh, yeah. And when you consider how hard it is to carve, particularly woods, because it's such a hard steel.
Yes.
But it's very nicely made in general. The buckles and the fittings are all well designed. The gilding is really very focused. It's not over the top. It's quite restrained, but complex and really interesting to look at. It's a good. I mean, they say 18th to 19th century. It shows that as late as that, people still really knew how to make good armor.
Yeah. Really fascinating. Let me just go back here. Okay, here we see that from here, from this direction. And if we come back here, look at the facial features of Guru Nanak. And what is he holding? Is it a chakram? You see that?
I don't know. I'm pretty certain that he's got under his arm, he's got one of those crutches, I think, that when you're sitting on the ground or I would say bed or a tucked or something like that. It was common in India for religious people to have like a little thing they put under their arm and leaned on so that so that might be one of the things there. It's not being held. It's just covered by his arm. If it was, say, something that had a hook on it, like an ankus for guiding an elephant, you would imagine he'd hold it in his hand. What he's holding in between his two hands, though, it could be a chakram because the hand is shown like that, which would hold a ring. It could be meant to be some kind of globe.
Yeah, of course, it could also
representing the heavens or the world.
Yeah.
You'd probably need an expert on Sikh iconography to really work that out, because it might have more than one meaning too. I mean, people. This is in the 18th and 19th century. People are really sophisticated by this stage. This is not, like primitive in any.
And you can see it from another angle, right? So this is interesting. Bagal band, as we say in Persian. So these on the side armor, which has an opening so they can move the hands clear, right? This is very interesting.
So this, I mean, when you think that what Charina developed from those little discs, and gradually got bigger and then got squarer, and even some later ones even have kind of like muscles in them, like a muscle cuirass or something like that. But they're quite basic and almost certainly were developed in a response to firearms rather than other weapons, because these are really solid. And you normally wore mail underneath. I think this was, and I'm prepared to be corrected on this, you don't see them before the large-scale use of firearms. You see the smaller ones early.
Yeah, and this is a theory put forward by some researchers, of course.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have worked this out for themselves. I'm particularly sensitive, I think, because my interest in archery, about what things are necessary to protect you from archery and what things are necessary to protect you from bullets. Now, bear in mind that if you are close enough, nothing's going to protect you from bullets that you can comfortably wear. It would be just too heavy. The Japanese developed an equivalent of this with hinges down the sides that wrapped around in the kind of at the end of the Sengoku Jidai period, when Japan was being unified and there was a large-scale use of muskets in warfare. The Europeans developed plate armor before there were a lot of guns around.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it was a thing Europeans really liked. The rest of the world thought it was very heavy, and it was only when they were forced to. I must admit, the Chinese took the logical view. Once it became apparent that guns shot through armor, they just started wearing parade armor, and it became a uniform instead of a real protection. Because guns are the ultimate, leveler. Though I must admit, in India and to some extent in the Middle East as well, the concept of wearing mail lasted a lot longer because there was a lot of sword to person fighting.
Yes.
And mail is it's expensive, but it's a good extra layer of protection. In India, padded cotton clothing for armor was very common. And remember that beautiful armor that you showed?
The Rajput one?
Yeah, the Rajput one. I mean, it even without metal plates inside, this was still fairly effective. And bear in mind, in India, the tradition was to have your swords really sharp, and a slashing sword will cut through most fabric armor quite well, but they worked out ways to make it work. Yeah. And I think the English even commented, and I'm thinking of that book Swordsman of the British Empire, where they quoted lots of people in the various company armies and whatever in their memoirs talking about sword fights, because that's what the book was about, saying that often their blades were turned by the mail that was being worn by the Khalsa in the case of fighting the Sikhs, or in general Rajputs all over the Indian subcontinent. There were people making quite effective armor because good metal workers, which you can see.
Yeah. Do you like the buckles? I love the buckles on this. Look.
I think the buckles are beautiful. As a leather worker, I think it's a brilliant design.
Look at them. Here you can see them better. It's beautiful, isn't it?
They're just such a good design. And it's interesting that obviously the ones on the side plates are not actually buckles. They're loops that the straps are sewn to.
Loops. You're right.
And then there are buckles on the front one where you can reach to do it up.
Yeah, right. They're loops.
Yeah. Absolutely. So they're such a nice design. They have almost that plant type shape on the sides that turns into the kind of arabesque floral curls and whatever that's on the main body of each plate of the armor. So it's rare to see buckles that well designed.
Look at that. Oh, here you see Guru Nanak again. Look here.
Oh yes, there is.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Really beautiful. Magnificent piece of armor.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And we forget, I don't know whether it's true on this, but these were also usually lined with padded velvet.
Yeah, it is velvet inside. Yeah. Please take a look at that. Look at here, you see that?
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, this would be worn over mail, so that padding would be more to protect it from catching on the mail than to protect the person underneath it.
Yes.
But very, very nice design.
And now we go to the sword attributed to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, late 18th, 19th century. Again, crucible steel, wood steel, walrus ivory, following Persian tradition, of course. Then, beautiful, beautiful. So they call it the Shamshir, of course, which it is. Exhibited belonged to Ranjit Singh. It was exhibited at the Musée Rétrospectif in Paris. Excuse me, I'm talking French now. In Paris in 1865. I just see French, I start to talk French, right? So this is, and then they say only the most prestigious of swords were as richly mounted as this particularly fine example. The prominent figure of a tiger sits at the center of the crossguard, a fitting emblem to adorn a sword of a fearless warrior whose name translates as battle victory tiger. Magnificent, isn't it? Unbelievable.
Interesting. The scabbard is typically, I don't know if the mouth of the scabbard will show this, whether it's typically Persian or slightly Turkified.
Let me just go through it. We can take a look at this. Maybe I have better pictures. Hold on, closer. Here.
Yeah, that's much more like Indian and Persian scabbards are more likely to have a undecorated mouth
Yes.
of the scabbard.
Yes.
Whereas this kind of raised work, which is, I assume, metal, that resembles the Persian thing of having raised leather work like that.
Yes, that's right.
Oh
The
yeah, I was
Persian
looking at
ones.
the
Yeah.
buckle there. Yeah, it's very much in the Lahori. This is from Awad. Sorry. It's wonderful the different pronunciations we've inherited.
Bede, take a look at the patterned crucible steel. Look how beautiful.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Darkish, beautiful.
Oh yeah, that's impressive.
Impressive. One of the best you can get on it.
Yeah, I would not want to be at the other end of that. I think that would
No, God.
that would be very good for removing arms or legs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Look at this. What do you think about this decoration on the cord? Look at that.
That's beautiful. This kind of thing of using a fabric belt and straps that have been highly embroidered and often with gold wrapped thread and things like those, gold and silver wrapped thread, and
Yeah.
maybe pearls, looks like pearls on that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they
The odd
do.
ruby.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
This,
ruby. I see it. Yeah, here. Let me just go here back. Excuse me. Yeah, exactly. Ruby. Yeah. Let me just come back here.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. Looks like ruby and pearl. Yeah. Very beautiful. Really beautiful.
Yeah, this is
Pete, look at the scabbard fitting.
yeah. Is that a stylized lion or a tiger?
I think so, or maybe a tiger. I don't know exactly, but really beautiful.
Yeah.
Here we
And
can see the
again,
profile.
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, quite thick back.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's
exactly.
very strong in its cutting.
Very,
Yeah,
very strong.
again, not the sword you want swung at you. It may be highly decorated and everything like that, but it's a fully practical sword.
Absolutely, absolutely. Please take a look at this again. We can see the pattern. And here,
Yeah,
look at this. Oh, here you see that. You are right, rubies. Here, you can see
yeah,
it clearly. Yeah,
they
here as well.
shine sometimes. Yeah, it depends on the angle of the light whether they stand out.
Yeah,
That buckle fitting is one of those things that it fits into a hole that pulls back into a slot, and then the center of the buckle forms part of the decoration of the other half of the buckle. These were used on military belts in Europe. Whether they copied them from here or this is because remember the Sikhs in the time of Ranjit Singh had a lot of European advisors.
yeah.
Particularly French. I think they might have also had an American. I think I've seen a photograph of a man in a turban with
Mhm. Please
designation as
take a
a.
look at that. Are they fish? You see that?
It looked like fish to me.
Yeah, here as well. You see that?
Three fish.
And
So
here
there's
as
two,
well.
one up the middle.
Yeah, and one in the middle. Yeah, very
It's
beautiful. Really
beautifully
beautiful.
done. See,
We go here to another char also associated with it. Look at this.
I was going to comment on the sword knot in case you hadn't
Oh,
noticed
go ahead, please. Go ahead. Sorry.
So on the very last photograph, you can see it just hanging down at the top of the photograph on the to the left of the sword blade, and it's
Yeah.
equally decorated with all the straps. But if you look at a picture where you can see the whole of the hilt, it's attached at the base of the hilt, and there's a wrapping around the top of the quillen block.
Yeah.
And so it's right there. So when you're holding the sword,
Yes.
that loop comes out of the top of your hand and goes. So you put your hand through it. So when
Yes.
if you let go of the sword hangs right there with the handle just where you can grab it, rather than the loops that you see on some Persian and Turkish swords where the sword hangs down here and
Yes.
you have to flick your wrist to grab the sword again.
Yes.
It's interesting. That Turkish sword I've got hanging on the wall there has the remains of the same type of loop, metal embroidered cloth ribbon wrapped around it, which would have held the loop. The loop itself is long gone. That kind of thing. It has two advantages. One, the loop is obviously useful, but the other, it means that part of your hand there is gripping something that's not slippery. So if heaven forbid there's blood running down the blade of your sword or something, it doesn't get slippery. So you've got the pommel at the base of your hand, which stops the sword flying out of your hand, and you've got this kind of rough grip at the top of your hand, which gives you that control that you need to manipulate the sword. Interesting thing, you see it in swords from Lucknow too. I've seen it in well, as I say, I've got a Turkish sword there that's got it on it. I believe I've seen it on Persian swords as well. Certainly, see, the problem is that when Indians decided to mount a Persian blade, they would often make a Persian style hilt for it.
Yes.
And sometimes it's a bit hard to tell who made what. I mean, when it's figural, an animal and that, you almost assume that it's Indian. But the actual construction of the hilt is pretty much straightforward Persian. When you consider that in India itself, and I'm not talking about the modern country, but the whole subcontinent, hilts were made entirely differently. They were cast in one piece or cast in two pieces and welded together or soldered together. And then the tang of the blade was mounted with a tree resin that was heated up like an epoxy, and then you got everything lined up, and then it cooled. And if you decided you want your sword a little bit further forward, you just heat the hilt again and just move it a bit, and then let it cool again. It was the ultimate in well, changeability. You could take the hilt off and put it back on, whereas this hilt is permanently attached. And also customizable features in that you could change the angle, the blade could go that way, it could go that way, whatever. This is a uniquely Indian idea, and it's really quite brilliant. I mean, in Persia they did put resinous stuff between the grip scales and that, but they were actually riveted through the tang.
Riveted,
so,
yes, always
yeah.
riveted, always.
Yeah.
This is only an extra thing, as you know, but it was always riveted.
Yeah, it was the strength was the riveting. But still, it's really interesting when you see that. And you contrast that this type of sword was a prestige sword in the Punjab. And Indian rulers in general liked collecting Persian swords.
It is, yes.
I mean, Sind, apparently there was a real tradition of, I've got a sword that belonged to such and such, and I paid 5 lakhs of rupees for it, or whatever, lakh being 100,000.
It reminds me of collectors I advised today. I bought it from Sotheby's, I bought it from Christie's.
It's the same thing. And what amazes me is that we have that link to those collectors because we know people like that today. And it's not one culture or another culture. People just are like that. That's what we're all like. I think it's wonderful.
Wonderful, yes.
So anyway, back to the next chart, Aina.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is the char Aina. Look at this one. This is compared to the first. I mean, it's beautiful. It's also patterned crucible steel.
Yeah, because in this one, the borders are the decoration, and they're the defining feature. And the central panel of steel is just to show off how the quality of the steel. You don't need anything else.
Yeah, nothing else. Beautiful, isn't it?
And these still have the straps attached. And as I said, the permanent attachments are to the side panels, and the buckles
Yes.
are on the front and back panels.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Now we go to the helmet, unknown armor, but they also attributed to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Lahore, early 19th century, they could say. And we're going to take a look at that. Look at this one, such a beautiful helmet. Look.
yeah, it's beautifully made. Notice the one thing that's really unusual is it doesn't have a nasal.
No, that's it. The first thing I thought it was the same thing. No nasal. Yeah. As we
And
say,
I
Damalrak.
mean, you see in movies and that people with turbans wrapped around their helmets, and you very rarely see it in. I mean, in Indian paintings, Mughal paintings, and things, you see it occasionally, but it's quite rare. In this
Yeah.
case, you're not going to wrap anything around that helmet because you'd hide that beautiful gold work, and
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, no, you
it,
shouldn't.
it,
After all that beautiful gold work, you hide
yeah,
it with a turban.
you're going to show that one off. It's interesting
Exactly.
too. The
Yes.
Aventale comes down probably over most of the foreign. You would have worn a padded hat under that or a small turban. When you see a Sikh turban being put on by a traditional Sikh, there are
But look at
layers that,
this, please. This is also something unusual. Look at how, uh, like it. Look how it goes down and it gets
like little
narrow.
ribbons. Yeah.
Yeah, and this one and then the back. Normally they
Yeah.
come it wider, but this is so narrow.
Yeah, it's I wonder if there were originally pendants on the bottom like jewels or something.
Yeah,
Because
could be.
that's the kind of thing somebody would take off when they I'm going to say acquired this. I assume that this was part of some booty rather than bought in the marketplace. Um, but yeah, that's very unusual. But I think the idea of having little dangly bits. Remember, some of them are dagged, like they have triangular bits. Um, I sometimes get I don't know. But to me, it seems more an artistic decision. It's got
Yeah.
no practical purpose.
Yes, of course. And
But
very beautiful jaw parry feather holders too.
oh yeah, they're lovely, lovely.
And
Is
in
the
the
top
Zach
also
on top.
extended?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
really
they're beautifully made.
beautiful. Really nice.
When you see paintings of people wearing these with all the feathers and everything, you realize just how impressive they would have been on the battlefield
Yeah.
or in a parade. I mean,
Yes.
uh, we we um
Yeah.
we sometimes forget that there were big parades where all the generals and everybody, high ranks, and the rest of the soldiers, everybody takes part in the parade. It
You
might
know
be
what I
part of.
say? The sword which, I mean, I'm not talking about this armor, but in general, let's say you have a very beautiful sword made of the best patterned crucible steel, Persian patterned crucible steel. You have gold, you have all those jewels on you, and you're a general or whatever. And you go to the battlefield. I always say you are living a dangerous life because many people forget the war and just want to take you as a ransom and just take off all things you
Well,
have.
I can think of two examples of that. When Napoleon invaded Egypt and fought the Mamluks, his men were amazed by the immense amount of valuable material each man was carrying or wearing on his person when he went into battle. And the French soldiers went mad with the booty. And there's another famous example. I think it's in the Secret History of the Mongols, where either Ong Khan or one of his sons or cousins is destitute in the desert. He's down. His followers have left him, and he's just riding this really tired horse. And some nomads come up to him, and one of them notices he's got a gold belt. Now, gold belt meant you were really, really important because this guy was a high up prince. But a gold belt is really valuable. So they killed him and stole the belt. I think they ended up falling afoul of Chinggis Khan, who didn't like people being disloyal to their officers, even if they were his enemies. I think on a couple of occasions he had people executed because they turned in their own boss or murdered, more likely murdered their own leader, and then came and said, "Look, we've killed this enemy of yours," and he said that he was your leader,
Yeah.
and therefore you're going to die.
Yeah. That's right.
It was a different matter if you changed sides. You could change sides and say, "I don't want to, deal with this guy anymore because he's dishonest or something." That was acceptable. It wasn't acceptable to murder your own commander
Yes.
because,
That's
hey, you might do it to your next commander, and nobody
right.
wants.
We go now to bazubands, or
Oh,
here, also belong to Ranjit Singh, Lahore, Punjab, early 19th century. Please take a look. You see that? This is like in the line with the char aine we saw. Look at the decoration. Remember the second char aine we
yeah,
saw?
yeah,
Beautiful.
exactly. And also see how complete the hand coverings are.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that these are inside lined with mail.
Yeah, I
And
think so. I just
they've
wanted to
probably
ask you.
got just little loops for the hand and over that part of the hand too. I mean, I've seen ones that had that kind of thing on them. So it's quite a complete protection, though not like a European gauntlet or anything, but a good protection against random cuts. But your fingers and your thumb are free inside that because there are only little straps holding it on in place. So you can still get a good grip.
Pete, what I really love about that, this is protected on top of the hand as a mitten, but also down. Look at that. So
Yeah,
your hand goes,
really, yeah, that's really quite unusual. And I
yeah,
think well, obviously it's a very good idea. I've only got to handle maybe one or two bazuband in my life, real ones. I mean, I've got a pair, but it's late 20th century tourist bazuban. But I mean, they're effective and they're Indian, but still. But the one I handled was, I think it was 17th, 18th century, and it had raised spiraling flutes going up the outside of the arm with gold inlay, not Kofgari. Um, and the thing that struck me was that they're really well designed.
yeah,
So you're defending yourself, and a blade hits them, and it slides off. And the person, if they don't pull back, they're completely off balance.
yes,
Whereas if you make big things to protect your elbows and a blade comes down, it stops, and the person can recover. These are tricky. I mean, they look very simple, but they're designed in an actual fight. And I'm not saying that this was why they were made that way, but a lot of them they go past the elbow there,
yes,
a blade coming down them just goes past your body.
absolutely.
And if the person isn't prepared for it, they can be off balance, which means they're open to your attack.
2 points
Yeah,
agreed. I
yeah.
handled similar, but not similar, but somehow the same hand protection of a bazuband in Military Museum of Tehran, which is Safavid and attributed to Shah Ismail. But interestingly, it looks like that, but then it has the mitten for protection of the hand, and inside there are mail. But then the hand down there is left empty, so you could touch, grasp the sword, right? And as you know that in Persian manuscripts, they always say it's good to keep your hand naked, to have contact with walrus ivory. So because it sticks to your hand. Because even you can
Yeah, yeah.
they spit on it, then it sticks. But when I saw this, because I've handled many Persian bazubands in the same style in military museums of Iran, but I've never seen one which also covers this part. And this is the first time, but it's a very intricate design because you put your hand in it, you understand it's protected everywhere. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, but it doesn't get here.
Yeah, exactly.
That
I don't
that that
understand.
that part's probably held by the thumb. So when you grab a sword, that one part goes around there and one part goes around there, and you get that protection. And obviously, the part where it's joined is the upper part.
Oh, that's right. So the hand goes through it. You hold the sword, and this part comes out, that part comes out. That's what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That's
So it's a good design.
yes,
Um, the thing with these is too that they're actually my Bazaband have the same design. The hinge, there's a hinge on each side, and one hinge you can pull the pin out, or actually pull it out that way, and then
yeah.
it opens up. But when you put it back in, it's locked, and you can
It's
just see the
hinge.
top.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see that hinge.
yeah.
Whereas, say, in Iran or Turkey, they would tend to have strips of mail um, instead of a hinge. Indians liked hinges. I think this hinge style is old and probably was popular maybe in Khorasan up into Central Asia because there's a pair of bazuban like things in a book I've got from Mongolia, which is like this, except it's got a hinge on either side and the two sides come together and do up in the
Yes.
middle,
There
which
are in Persian examples, there are three types, as you know. Very
Mhm.
few are hinged. You're right. Some of them are connected with mail, and some
Mm.
of them, la char aine, connected via straps. The
Yeah,
bazuban.
I've seen pictures of those. I
Yes,
haven't been lucky enough to see them, but I've seen pictures of them.
yes,
When you look at miniatures from about the late 1300s around Shiraz and that, you can see Bazuban and you can see the hinge plate.
yes. They
So
are.
so it may have been a regional thing.
Yes,
Some areas like them, some not. And of course, anything like this can move. And if somebody likes it, that might not be their local style, but they've got a pair, they're not going to say, oh, but these are good. I like these. I'm going to use these. Um,
yes,
this is what I like about how things um, move between cultures
yes.
and countries where
Mm.
not like we think in terms of uniforms and everything is the same. So therefore, you wouldn't
Yes.
have somebody from the German army wearing something from the British army or the French army because it wouldn't be part of their uniform. But in these days, there's no uniforms.
You know, what you said reminds me, I mean, it's unrelated. I wrote an article with a Russian colleague from Engineering and Artillery Museum in St. Petersburg. And then there was a painting, and they were just fighting, right? So Russians against Persians in the first Russian-Persian War. And then you see that Russians all had the uniforms, and one Russian there has a Persian helmet. And they just said, why does he have a Persian helmet? And he's so funny. He said, Manusha, I am sure he lost his protection headgear. And in the middle of the battle, he figured, I'm going to use a helmet, take it from a Persian guy. He just died, put it on my damned head,
Yes.
because the least thing you care you want to protect yourself and not to look like the other guys in your unit when you just lost your habit. So I was really laughing about that. I said, yeah, he has a point, he has a
It's
point,
very
right?
practical. Yeah,
Yeah,
very practical.
very practical. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we go to okay, this one we talked. Here you can see somehow the crucible steel pattern. If you take a look at that, beautiful, really beautiful. And
Yeah.
now please take a look at these. These helmets, I love them.
I yeah. I
I
know that.
really
I
love
know
them.
the style. They are beautiful.
They are
And,
really beautiful.
and
Yeah,
the
but
Ganga Jumni style mail with the different colored links to make patterns.
yes,
Uh,
and the shape of the helmet, right? That's what I also love.
well,
And then
this is that where you've got a knot of hair and you tie it up with a cloth.
yes,
And
or
I mean,
six, yeah,
yeah, it's very, very, very sick, isn't it?
yeah,
Um,
it is.
but
So they call it. Our colleagues from the Wallace collection call it a turban helmet. That's what they call it. So
Mhm.
they say possibly Lahore, Punjab, 1825 to 50. Okay, water steel is crucible steel. And then they call it taupe, if I pronounce it correctly, which has been forged to accommodate the Sikh turban, according to our colleagues, complete with top knot, was on display at the grand conference held between Maharaja Ranjit Singh and the Governor General Lord William Banteneck in 1831. Among the assembled Sikh forces were the 800 strong Sikh dragoons of General Allard's elite brigade, the Fauji Khas, who each wore a steel helmet in the shape of a Sikh turban. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Beautiful.
this is, and the thing is, of course, there was a period in European armies where they didn't wear helmets at all. And then came the First World War and they worked out, well, maybe that's the part of the person that gets damaged the easiest and is the most dangerous. And then helmets came back into fashion. I mean, at one stage, helmets were leather, hardened leather, and things like that. I'm talking about European armies here. Now, the Sikhs, who are creating their army at the same time, and as they say, General Allard, he's French, and he was a very good soldier, and they totally incorporated the traditions of the area
Yeah.
and took advantage of them. Because if you swung a sword at a person who's wearing one of those little turbans and his top knot of hair, and then he's got this form fitted over it, and you hit him with the sword, he might end up with a headache, but he's gonna survive.
Yeah.
Some of the other helmets people were wearing probably not quite so good. And pity the poor person wearing a pickle helm because that may not work quite so well. But these, you see the points at the front of the aventail
Yeah.
at the bottom. So they
Yeah.
kind
Mhm.
of are related to those long strings of mail we saw on the other helmet.
Yes.
Because when
Absolutely.
you put it over, that kind of fits quite nicely down the front of your body. Again, the mail probably came to just above your eyebrows.
Yeah.
Because if you get cut here, even a light cut, and blood starts running into your eyes, that's really difficult to deal with. Because once it starts bleeding across the scalp or the
Heavily,
forehead,
profusely. Yeah.
bleed a lot. I mean, boxers. This is a problem boxers have all the time.
All the
And
time.
a quick flick with a sword, not because the person is almost out of range, but you just touch them, that could mean in the long term that they actually lose the sword fight
Yeah.
because they can't see properly what's going on, or they spend a lot of time shaking their head, which is not a good way of working out where everybody else is standing. So it's an interesting idea. I think you would get a bad bruise, but you probably
Yes.
wouldn't get cut.
This one is the other one. And this is
Yeah.
also Lahore, Punjab. Our colleagues say, also they say 1825 to 50, also made of patterned crucible steel, watered steel, as our colleague call it. Please take a look at that, the same shape almost. But look at this beautiful man.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
It is unbelievable,
I
magnificent.
I once, not supposed to say this, I got to try on I think it was a Lahori Gunga Jamni mail coat, and it was buttered mail, and it was a diamond pattern
Oh,
of gold and silver, and it was lined with, it was edged with black layers of black silk with gold rivets, and it was lined with felt, so that even though the mail would not have been very effective, the felt probably would have given you a bit of
yeah.
protection. Buttered mail, I mean, I was terrified that the thing was going to fall apart from its own weight. When we measured, I measured a square inch on it and counted the rings, and it worked out that this coat, which was half sleeve and about mid to lower thigh length on
Yes.
me, and I'm not big, would have had 120,000 rings in it.
Oh, these are
And
lots.
admittedly, they weren't riveted, but oh, that's a lot of work. And it was beautiful.
Beautiful.
Um, you when you see this stuff up close, if you could imagine it on somebody, a big
Yes.
muscular guy with a big mustache and a long beard and that, this would be so impressive
It
in
is.
that bright sunlight because
It is.
it would flash gold and silver. Even the iron would flash.
Yeah.
The gilded iron. I'm assuming it's gold dipped. I mean,
Yes.
sometimes they did it with brass rings, but
Mm.
that tended to make a much heavier mail that wasn't as practical.
Mm.
Sometimes they put brass rings on the lower rims of mail shirts and things because they were
Mm.
um, less likely to corrode.
Mm. That's
So, I
right.
mean, that was an advantage. But even so,
Yeah.
Even if you're just showing off how wealthy you are, it's really impressive.
It is.
I almost bought that mail shirt, but I couldn't see how I could look up. These are too difficult. Ah,
So we go now to a composite bow attributed to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, a flintlock pistol also of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and another sword also of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So let us take look at this flintlock pistol of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. They say our colleagues Lahore, Punjab, which their stock and barrel were made. And from England, of course, as usual it was the case, not always, they have also locally made, but lock, trigger, guard, and trigger guard. So about 1830s. Look, it's
yeah. See,
beautiful, isn't it?
very nicely made. And of
Yeah,
course, where they would excel would be in making a pattern welded barrel,
yeah,
um,
that's right.
because
Yes.
this was an area. I mean, Iran and Turkey were also famous for doing this. It's not like it's just the Indians,
You
but
know, Beat in Iran, I handled it as you know in the museum. I wrote a book about that. Lots of barrels, pistols, and also muskets, also arquebus. All of them were made of pattern welded steel, and most Indians as well. But from Dr. Denhart in Portugal, who has a
mm,
huge collection, also worked for and has a military museum there. He
mhm,
sent me pictures of only three barrels, long barrels of
mhm.
Indian made of crucible steel.
Wow. Now
Only.
that
And Dr. Denhart, Professor Denhart, I mean, who is, as you know, a German, a big researcher with many books in Portugal, also worked for the Ministry of Defense there as a researcher. And the only one he has, which is unique, there are three barrels he has. I think two of
mhm,
them, if I'm not mistaken. No, one of them, if my memory doesn't fail, is mounted. Two of them are
mhm,
bare barrels, but they're Indian, made of crucible steel. Because before he had shown them to me, I followed the line. I personally talk about myself. I always thought that crucible steel, they did. Okay, in Iran, I have never seen even one. They didn't
mhm,
make it because then it's maybe cannot adjust to the mechanics of the barrel, right? It could
mhm,
be dangerous mechanically, but then he proved me wrong. Dr. Denhardt proved me wrong because he showed me three barrels. But then
mhm.
Dr. Denhardt said something very interesting. He said, Manusher, anyhow, they made it, but please remember, he has an thousands of things, right? And he said, and he works with many museums, you'd hardly see. So maybe these three were experimental. Maybe we don't know. We don't know. And I asked him if we can shoot with them, and he looked at me. But you mean shoot with antiques? I just said maybe they, But anyhow, this is interesting, Pete. Only three. I haven't seen any barrel made of pattern crucible steel. Only
Well,
these three.
I've got a khanjar from India, and its grip it's in the Arab style,
Mm. Yes.
but it's two pieces of watered steel brazed together.
Ah.
So the grip itself is watered steel, and they had shaped it into that, like a jambia
Mhm.
form of hilt,
Yes.
hammered it out for, this is when you think, I mean, it's very simple, and the blade is actually quite complex and watered steel too, but
Mm.
they the degree of control that they had in manipulating woods is amazing. And when I say they, I'm talking about Smiths in India, Smiths in Iran, Smiths in
Yeah.
Turkey.
Yeah.
These people were incredibly skilled.
Incredible. Incredible.
Mm,
So here we have two more pictures of the same flintlock.
yeah,
I
it's
really love it, and it has its ramrod as well. Yeah, I can see it here.
yeah.
Ramrod is
So
there. Yeah,
that's again in the English style to have the ramrod as in the
yeah.
Turkish and Persian styles. The ramrod was part of your kit that hung off your belt usually. Um, but yeah, see, a pistol like that at 10 or 20 feet would blow a hole this big. uh, a very good weapon of last resort if you. I mean, the pistols that, say, cavalry used in Europe were longer. This is a personal weapon. This is the kind of thing that you would use, as I say, as a weapon of last resort. Somebody's got really close and you're running out of options and you really want to put him down, that pistol will do it. And for a long time, people preferred flintlock pistols to more modern repeating arms because they were very reliable. Once, by the 1800s, they worked out all the things that could go wrong. And so they were very reliable. The problem was, of course, you pulled the trigger, then there was the flash, and then the gun went off.
No.
But everybody using them was used to that, so it wasn't a problem.
Okay, now we come to your field, a composite bow of Ranjit Singh. Also
Yeah.
Lahore, Punjab, right? Take a look at that.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a
sorry.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's sword tried to take over. They do that. Swords are very it's like a somewhat laid back crab bow. But I don't mean that it's just opened out. If you look at the base angle where the ear joins the bending limb,
Yeah,
it's not as profound an angle.
yeah,
And I have a feeling this bow, it's not as wide in the limbs either. This bow might be a slight variant on the design. It may have more horn in it than the traditional crab bow does. You notice there's also a recurve.
yeah,
The very tip comes out
yeah,
rather than a lot of crab bows, it just goes in a smooth curve, but this is
yeah,
quite pronounced. And there's quite a few bows in India like this. Um, it's also been used for a long time because those bindings were rarely put on when the bow was made. They're usually put on when the bow's getting quite old and they don't want it
yeah,
to break
yeah,
or delaminate because there's a lot of stress at those. I mean, those bindings show exactly where the splices are underneath the sinew. Um, but yeah, that's a really well made bow. I'm guessing from what I can see of the decoration, it's really quite nicely decorated as well.
yeah,
Um, and since a bow like this can last for 100 years,
yeah,
it's not unusual to see them reinforced.
yeah,
Um, I mean, this might have been used by Ranjit Singh and one of his sons and one of his grandsons,
yeah, yeah,
um,
yes,
because they just last.
yes. Okay, this is a sword belonging also to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. They say, if I can, so you see that hilt Punjab, and then they
Yeah.
say Calcutta and Lahore, the blade, possibly, right? 1830s. And please take a look at that. This is, if I can, oh God, look at the blade. Also beautiful blade, really patent crucible steel, and a beautiful talwar or tulwar handle.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the swords I've got here has got the exact same form of hilt, though mine's only decorated with silver, not with gold,
Mhm.
because I am just a poor person. But um, see, those hilts were so useful. I've got actually a really old small one where it was decorated with gold, and you can just see the bits of gold on it. But see how solid the blade is? Now,
Yeah.
this blade doesn't have a false edge like most tulwars do.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain if we go back properly, it's Talwa. Uh, it's an sound, and the English wrote that as a U sometimes, uh, to distinguish it from the English at sound. See, the problem is a lot of the English that wrote these things down could speak Persian,
Yeah.
uh, and
Um,
and they tried to simplify it for their
yes.
colleagues because
um,
Persian a very
Pete, when
common.
I read the last book I wrote, and it was from Persian, written in India, an Iranian advisor who wrote sword classification, and he calls them tarwari in Persian. He writes them tarwari. That's interesting, isn't it?
So with a short A,
Yeah.
ha,
He calls them
ha,
tarwari.
yeah.
And I was
And
surprised because I said, okay, but it's a period. He writes exactly tarwari, which
mm,
is, we call him talwar, whatever.
yeah, but in the North Indian languages, that A is an ah.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
that's what causes all the confusion,
Yeah.
because we're looking, because this is it. For me, who heard a lot of these words from the Indian side, it took me a while to realize that the short A in Persian is A, because the long A is O.
Yeah.
And say in Irish, the short A is A and the long A is O. And you kind of, some of the, because the North, like Pashto and languages like that, are East Iranian languages. I think they're
Yes.
East Iranian. And
Yes.
but they have a different phonological structure in how the vowels are pronounced. And this is one of those endless rabbit holes you can go down about language. But I think that's where the different spellings come from. They're actually trying to spell the same sound, but from different perspectives.
Mhm.
So, and if you are a Persian writer, you would be writing in Persian script,
Yeah.
and you would use the letters and the way that you're used to writing it, even if the people where you were pronouncing it slightly different, because
Yeah.
they would write it that way too.
That's right.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's really interesting. I'm looking at the bow on the side there. Does the top limb have a pronounced twist on it? It does look it. I mean, that happens, but yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
a
yeah,
pronounced
that's a
twist. Yeah.
lovely sword. I don't know whether it's got that blunt ricasso that you see on most Indian swords of this type. Probably does. Whereas if it was a Persian blade, it would have the edge would run all the way up to the hilt.
Yeah.
So they're almost certainly. I'm not going to argue with them. It's probably definitely Kolkata or Lahore. And Kolkata is a perfect example. The the letter that the English wrote, they meant to pronounce it the way it's being pronounced now in India.
Yeah. That's right.
It's just that it was they oh that just they were too close together for them to separate when they wrote it down. Uh,
Mm.
now
So
what?
we go
Yeah,
to this is maybe interesting as well. Belts with
yeah.
ammunition pouches and powder flasks
Mhm.
likely to have belonged to Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Lahore, Punjab, early 19th century. This is beautiful. I really love this one. Look at this.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few of these in the flesh, so to speak, and they're all really nicely made.
Yeah.
Uh, you you see there's a hook on the belt for hanging something off.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
now that could be a number of things. A hook like that was sometimes used if you had a sword that had ring mounts and you were walking around and you didn't want it swinging backwards and forwards, you could hook one of the rings over a hook like that. There
Here,
in India,
right?
yeah. But that one maybe not, because it's on a cartridge belt.
Yes.
Those little pouches are classic style for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you may have hung something like a pistol off it
Look
by
at
its
this from top.
oh yeah. See the beautiful design.
Yeah. Very
And see those
nice.
pouches just have little vertical straps on the back for the belt to go through.
Yeah. Here. Here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here.
And just a
Very nice.
simple oval buckle,
And
but
here as
beautifully.
well.
Yeah. So that all the belt is probably leather covered with velvet. When I got my shield out a while ago, one of the little pieces of the straps had detached, and you can quite clearly see that they've got a solid leather core with a velvet covering that was probably sewn inside out and then pulled over the leather rather than being sewn on it in pieces.
Yes.
Though I don't know. I mean, I've only got a small piece and it's only one piece, so it doesn't mean that everything was made that way. But yeah, you could imagine uh, the Maharaja may have wanted himself, or he may have had somebody who walked along beside him carrying his gun and carrying all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because when you're the Maharaja, you can do that.
Of
Um,
course.
uh, but yeah, it's just so nicely made. And the detail, I'm just looking, because I'm a leather worker, so I look at the back of those pouches and I see the way the stitches are put in little triangles.
Yeah.
So long stitch, shorter, 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 shorter until you get a little triangle form.
Yeah.
Um, in three groups. I mean, this is precision work showing off And also the inverted teardrop shape of the cross sections are really quite interesting too.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, are we looking at? They're probably cartridge cases, so you would
I
have
think
paper
so.
cartridges. Yeah.
I
Um,
was thinking the same cartridge. I think so.
yeah.
And then matchlock muskets, also attributed to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Also, they
Yeah.
call it Lahore, early
Yeah.
19th century. Please take a look at that. Oh, beautiful. Look at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matchlocks lasted a really long time.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point. European matchlocks, the match came back to the
Yeah.
touch pen, but Indian ones, and I think Persian ones too, it goes
Yes.
forward. So do the
Forward.
Turkish. Um,
Yes.
and instead of having a trigger, there's a little button
Yeah.
that you pull back,
Yeah.
which is less like you can see it in the on the left hand side. It's less like I think that's the button. No, that's the stand. Sorry, don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Maybe I can
But
find it. I think you know what? I
sometimes,
think they wrapped it with this match. I think it's
oh
down
yeah.
there.
Oh no, there it is. Behind
Oh,
the
there it
match. It's
is.
not a
Here.
button. It's like that thing. It's you know the
Yeah.
strap holders on Sasanian swords. It's that
Yes.
shape, like a kind of B
Yeah.
shape. Yeah, so that was the other thing. So there's a lever that goes forward, and
Yes.
when you pull that up, the thing goes
Yes.
flicks down. Um, very long barrels,
Yes.
very popular idea. That little implement on the side of the barrel, a metal
Yes.
needle kind of thing, is for clearing out the touch hole, I think,
Yeah.
because powder is dirty, and when it burns, it leaves residue. And so every now and then you've got to poke that into the touch hole to
Yes.
make sure that there's enough space for
Yes.
the flame to go
Absolutely.
through.
I really need to say again, thanks to Usman. He just really went out of his way to make all these pictures from different angles. It's
Great.
beautiful, right?
Oh
Great
yeah,
job.
they're great. They're very good
Yeah.
pictures. Very. See, the thing is, he's looking at it from how does this work,
Yeah.
rather than this is a beautiful picture. This
Yeah.
is a lot of detail that people need
Yeah.
when they're trying to work out how
Beautiful.
things together. Yeah.
Okay, now we move on. Oh, this is beautiful. We move on
Oh,
here. Chakram, right? Gold decorated chakram. There are four of them here, right? They also they attributed Punjab, 19th century. Look at them.
beautifully made.
Yeah, look at them.
Uh,
Beautiful.
a uniquely Indian weapon. Nobody else
Yeah,
thought of them.
yeah, uniquely.
And
Absolutely.
there's the two methods of throwing them: the frisbee style, flicking them like that, and the index finger style, where you twirl them around and throw them. And I've seen people do it on YouTube both ways. The frisbee style is natural to a modern Westerner, but the spinning around the finger thing, I've seen old illustrations showing that, and it appears to be the original way of doing it. I don't know whether I'd want to do that. I find having something that's a sharp edge all the way around is a dangerous enough thing to start
Yes.
off. I mean, the problem with a weapon like this is it works by surprise. If you see it coming, you can dodge,
Yeah.
because you can't throw anything faster than your arm moves.
No.
And in countries where there are ball games, people are used to catching things. Anything you can catch, you can dodge.
Yes.
And so something like this, maybe coming out of a group of people, you wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
And then you get a nasty slash across the face or wherever.
Yeah.
Certainly, if it came from behind, you wouldn't see it. And they're relatively silent.
Yes.
But
That's true.
I doubt, I mean, I'm sure that you wouldn't use it any further away than you'd use a javelin.
Yes. No, absolutely. So we have
But
another armor in this Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So it's a complete armor, as you can see.
yeah,
Again,
and
char aine, bazuband, and
yeah.
a helmet. They're all together. So you can see
You
that.
you notice that the helmet has got a nasal this time.
Yeah, this time it has. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And see how it's got a little pendant loop
Yeah.
on the helmet side. So when you lift the nasal up, there's a little hook on the front of the nasal to keep it up out of the way if you don't want it there. Uh,
Yeah.
Instead of having a like a little screw fitting, which you see in a lot of Turkish and Persian helmets.
Yeah.
The I'm just looking, yeah. Unusually, you can see like the shoulders for the straps for the charina are padded.
Yeah.
You don't usually see that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was quite common.
Yeah. Here, you mean here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would have been quite common, but it's not something that necessarily survives.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I'm not quite sure what's going on. This one is different.
Yeah.
I would normally expect to see the buckles on the big rectangular plate, but in this one, it's the loops are on the big rectangular plate.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
They're the
don't,
loops. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing that's interesting, that appears to have the original helmet's chin strap.
Yeah.
If you
That's right.
you never see those, they never
No
survive.
chin strap. They're all
Yeah,
gone. Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Amazing. I didn't see that first. Yeah. Original
Yeah,
chin strap. Most of
we'll
them
see
have
it.
lost it due
Yeah,
to passage of
thank
time.
Usman for having such a detailed photograph because you'd never even think to look for it because they're so rare. And
Yeah.
it's even got tassels on the bottom.
Beautiful, huh? Really
Just to
beautiful.
remind people how important you are. Yeah, that's good.
Look at the shoes.
Oh, I love the shoes.
How beautiful.
Yeah. See, this type of shoe is very popular all through Northwest India. Actually, I think through a lot of India. You can see videos of people making them because they still make them in the traditional manner.
Oh,
It's
they
really,
still do. Okay, I
oh
didn't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Okay.
Because let me take a shoe off
Oh, it's so funny.
because
Okay.
I watched the videos and learned how to make them.
You made them yourself?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I
You
were handy like you. Very nice.
Well, it's because I'm interested in so many things I can't buy. You can learn how to make them. Funnily
Yeah.
enough, I learned the basic structure of them from some friends
Mm.
who'd bought some because you can buy them in shops, but
Yeah.
more generally with very curly toes because that was fashionable for a while in the 19th century and the early 20th century.
Yeah.
Ones that are practical like this, I think you can still buy them in the bazaars all through North India and Pakistan.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
because
Interesting.
they again look at the bazooban, look at the way the hand is totally enclosed.
Yes, I can see it. Oh, is in the
Yeah,
same style of the one we saw before. Yeah.
and his male trousers with their red cotton lining.
Yeah.
But see, again, this is Ganga Jamni work with the different
Yeah.
coloured rings, and
Yes.
almost certainly that's just buttered rings, but they're so tiny. Um, I often wonder whether they I mean, we see buttered mail in cultures that usually use riveted mail. I wonder whether really expensive suits, they sometimes heat treated it after it was put together,
Yes. Yes, I agree with you.
because that would be the way to get round the
You know,
problem.
Beat, that's the reason you just said. When I handled these armor, most of them in Persian museums are riveted, but I also
Mm.
handled later ones, which were but good quality ones. That's why they were in museums. Bought it. I no, I say it openly to you, and I pulled, moved nothing.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, nothing.
they've
You know,
been.
and I just give you an example why I did it. Because when you go to Bazaar of Tehran now, they make for taziyeh, this buttered mail, right? But if you pull, they open, right?
Yeah, because it's easy to make
Yeah,
when
yeah.
the wire is soft. But if
But
you
beat
use a
this
steel
antique buttered mail of Persian armor, I swear
rod,
to you. And I'm a strong guy. No matter how I pulled, nothing moved.
well,
Nothing.
the other people that didn't rivet mail but made it strong were the Japanese. And
Okay.
Japanese mail is definitely hard. Well, not all of it, but the stuff that was meant for important people to be used in battle is after the structure's made, the whole thing is hardened. Now, whether anybody's tried this in modern times, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
certainly something worth checking
I
because
mean, thank you for bringing this upbeat because, many people who have never handled antiques as we do, they think, oh, butted mail is not strong. It's not true. Butted mail, also in Persian, old ones, they're strong rings. You cannot open them. You
yeah,
cannot open them.
I think it's post construction hardening. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there would be no reason you couldn't case harden mail.
No.
That is to say, make a mail shirt and then put it in an oven with carbon and
Yeah.
have the carbon absorbed into the surface and turn it into steel.
Yeah.
So when you made it, it was soft, but when it comes out of the oven, it's hard. I don't know. I'm sure that there are mail makers out there that would be willing to try this to find out if they can do it.
I have like an anecdote of unhardened or case hardened. If they're not case hardened, butted mail happens. When they make it for Tazieh, sometimes, not all the time, they put it always on the ground, the mail. But sometimes they hang it. And then I was there, I looked, because I was looking for someone who makes real one. And then I saw they're getting loosened, and then all of a sudden they start to fall down, part of the mail, right? Because it was too heavy.
Because
And
the
I told the
weight
guy,
of the shirt opened
yeah.
it up.
And I just said, hey, look, please, it's getting, it's going to fall on the ground. He said, it doesn't matter. It happens very often. He puts them back. So, but,
Well, see, the thing about this one is that the shirt that I got to examine really closely had that pattern in the
yeah,
mail.
yeah,
This shirt has, and it was sewn to a backing. So even if it was unhardened links, and bear in mind it was probably made in the 19th century, it may not have ever been intended for battle, but it could have been intended as like part of the uniform of a high-ranking officer. The thing is, sewn to a backing, the links at the top don't necessarily pull apart from the weight of the mail at the bottom, even if it's not hardened. The problem is, if you've got one that's 150 or 200 years old, how strong are the stitches? So if you've got one, you lay it down flat. They're not worried about putting it on a figure, which means that the mail must be pretty strong. I'm
strong.
sure that it's stitched onto the mannequin and that, but even so, and look at how crisp the skirt is.
It is.
It's very, very sharp. And the fact, I don't know, I mean, this is very fine mail. This is what, 4 millimeter or something like that.
Yeah,
It's very small.
very small.
I'm not sure that simple buttoned mail trousers without some kind of hardening could have stood up to being worn without terrible things happening, because the stress on trousers is, I mean, if they were just leggings, maybe, but if they're actually made into trousers, then there's a lot of stress going on there.
No.
So I don't know. Unlike you, never got the chance to do that on the one I tried on, but I was looking at it and thinking to myself, that's going to pull apart from its own weight, because it's,
Seriously, old butted mail, at least Persian ones, they are really all strong. I have never seen butted mail which was not strong. And this newly made for Tazieh, they get loosened by their sheer weight if they're hanging.
Yeah.
So
Well, as I say, I think it'd be worthwhile for somebody out there who likes making mail and has been tired of riveting to make some buttered mail
you're
and
right.
see if they can harden it. Because
You're right.
the qualities of the steel that you'd need for it would be very easy for a metallurgist to work out, or even
Yeah.
for a metallurgist if you wanted to use one of them. But yeah, so I think this is a really interesting thing, because if you've actually examined old ones that were very strong, it means that somebody was doing something.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all very well. Most people only see these behind glass.
Yeah.
so that they don't get an opportunity to find out anything more about them. I mean, when
Yes.
I first, the one I saw, because I actually picked it up, and
Mm.
um, you could clearly see that the what looks like gold or brass rings were actually steel rings that have been gold washed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Gold
uh,
rush.
it, so that they would have
Exactly.
had the same strength as the other rings.
Yes.
And
Some of them,
the
good point, Pete, you bring up, but not all of them are brass or copper. Many of them still gold washed or iron gold washed. You're
yeah,
right. This is also
yeah.
something else.
And if you
Absolutely.
were, yeah, look, I'm not saying I don't know enough about how metals behave. Maybe putting a thin gold layer on them meant that they were didn't absorb carbon, so they couldn't be hardened.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, maybe you hardened the rings
Yes.
so that they were spring hard, so that they were a bit hard to put together, but they popped into place, in which case you could put the gold on afterwards. I really don't know. I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, mail is not my thing. The only thing I ever did was a study
Mm.
of the process to find out what was the most efficient way to make it because I was interested. I couldn't imagine people sitting around. I saw I think it was from the British Museum done about 30 years ago,
Mm.
and a guy was repairing a male shirt, and he had a little anvil, and he was riveting each male ring separately with a little hammer on this tiny little anvil. And I thought to myself, surely they don't do it that way. And then I found a photograph of an Indian male shirt maker from this was taken in the 1920s or something, or maybe even earlier. And there he is with a pair of long-handled pliers scrunching the rivets down because it's so much faster and so much easier.
So
And
much
I
easier.
thought to myself, yeah, maybe the museum people were doing it that way so that they could get the rivets looking exactly the same.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because they thought that was the way it was put together.
Yes.
They thought this is the best way to restore it. And
Restore.
they've got it in front of them, and they might be right. But yeah, when you realize that virtually everybody that made mail
Mm.
used pliers, not a hammer and an anvil to put the
Yes.
rivets in, it makes a lot more sense. I'm also
Yes.
looking at the bazubands again that
Hinged.
really
Yes.
hinged and that really a lot of gold
A
on the
lot of
steel.
gold.
I mean, it's just it would be this would be so brilliant in the bright sunshine.
Yes. Absolutely. And now we go and move on. And this also will interest you. Quiver
Oh,
and arrows presented by a Sikh chief to William Fraser, Punjab, early 19th century. So, who is that? They say William Fraser, as you can see it here, was a British official in India who, along with his brother James, commissioned an important group of early 19th century
yeah.
portrait studies known collectively as the Fraser album. Okay. What do you think about
Hmm.
this, Pete?
This
Let
is
me see
this
if
is
I
a
have better picture. Look.
yeah. I think I was discussing something a discussion I'm going to have with Usman because he asked me something about a quiver in an Indian painting. This is a typical late Indian quiver, and what's important about it is those two straps
Yeah.
on the front of the quiver that start at the support tabs go
Yeah.
back around the back of the quiver, and there's a loop there, and they go through that loop and then back out because that is what you see on Persian quivers and Turkish quivers, the strap on the inside of the quiver that stops the quiver from tilting. But these quivers at this time were not worn at an angle, they were worn straight down.
Straight down.
And in fact, the method they probably used to draw and shoot was like the ancient Sasanian quivers that were worn straight down
Yeah,
too.
straight.
So you pull
Yes.
the arrow up like this and then nock and shoot.
Yes, like this.
And
Yeah.
this type of quiver was worn and it was also tied to the saddle.
Yes.
So you had the quiver on one side and the bow case on the other. Because at this period, the only time you used your bow was probably when you're on horseback. Whereas, say, in the 16th and 17th centuries, if you fell off your horse, you wanted to have your bow and arrows with you as well as your sword.
Yeah.
The thing that was tied to the saddle was your mace rather than your bow and arrow or something like that. But yeah, that's the absolute brilliance of of the way these quivers are made. I mean, the stitching, the sewing, and that. One of my friends, and I don't think she remembers it, but she used to own one of these quivers. Somebody made it, like, in the 1990s or something like that, but in India. And it was made exactly like this one, except it had little sequins sewn to the velvet and all that kind of stuff. And you look at the arrows too. They've got bone or ivory nocks. If it's bone, it's camel bone. If it's ivory, it's elephant ivory. You will notice that they're quite wide.
Yeah.
Because the bowstrings were 4 to 5 millimeters thick. You can
Why are
see
they
that
reddish inside? Do you see that?
they're painted red. I've got a couple that you paint them red. I don't know why, but that was done. Maybe they used lacquer with red coloring in it to even out the inside so that it was perfectly smooth for the bowstring.
Yeah.
And red was just the color they liked. You notice too, sometimes you can see traces of where the feathers were going up onto the ivory nocks.
Yeah.
Because they were fletched right up to the opening. And the other thing that's really important to notice is the sides of the nocks are straight. They do not clip onto the string. Neither Persian nor Indian nocks clipped onto the string. This was something the Turks apparently invented. It's a great idea. Everybody nowadays uses it. But it wasn't a thing. What they would do to make the arrows grip the string is they would put a bit of silk floss on the nocking point where the arrow went.
Yes.
Because these arrows, those nocks are a standard size. I've got dozens of Indian arrows, and the variation in a knock width is less than a millimeter. They're all 4 to 5 millimeters. It's because they made the strings to fit the nocks, not the other way around. You can see this. The nocks are so thin on the sides.
Yes.
But they're good arrows, those.
So this one I really like. Sadly, it is a bit blurred. My apologies. So, personal dagger of Colonel James Skinner, North India, late 18th to early 19th century.
Yes, horse, yes.
So we have here black and white jade. So who was Skinner? They say Anglo-Indian mercenary who was the founder of the irregular cavalry regiment, Skinner's horse, and author of a Persian biography of Maharaja Ranjit Singh.
Oh, yeah, he spoke Persian and Hindustani as well as English. I think he was half Indian, but he was a very serious cavalryman. He was a brilliant soldier. And when you see, this is basically a Peshkab's blade.
Yeah, it is.
And he's mounted it with a cross between a Khanjar hilt and almost a pistol hilt. You know, the flintlock pistol style?
Yes. So
it's got the little quillons, which are, carved into the jade handle, are good to stop, so when you stab, the blade doesn't move in your hand. And the pommel is really good when you're pulling it out, because you don't want to leave that left in your enemy.
You know what I was trying to read? Please take a look here. It's in Persian. And they write, it's blurred. I try to read it. They say Cornell, I think for colonel, but they write Cornell, but then not James. They write Jamal.
Oh, fair enough.
Excuse me, I'm just laughing. I shouldn't be laughing.
I think they Jamal Skinner as Skinner as well, with a leading I.
Yeah, beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. But see, this is interesting when you get these people in working for the East India Company that were almost totally Indianized and even Persianized literally, because their literature that they read was in Persian. Yeah. Because like the old Mughal administration, which essentially the East India Company became the privatized government administration of the Mughal Empire. It was really interesting.
Look at the reinforced tip. My God, how much reinforced it is. Look at this.
That's really strong. I've got a dagger like that outside. And when you think the shape of these going in, they're designed to part mail. I mean, the other style, the straighter style, I think there's one laying around here, like this style.
Yeah.
This doesn't care whether it's male or whatever. This is meant to go into anything,
Yeah.
not plate or anything. And you know, it's got that little notch there for your index finger, so that
Yeah.
when you stab, you've got perfect alignment. But the ones with the recurved tip and the reinforcement, as I say, I've got one. I might have two. I'm not sure. They are so fierce looking. I mean, you know, you
Yeah.
really, somebody coming at you with one of those, you would really back off. Or I would anyway. I'm not.
Yeah.
You can just feel that going into
Beautiful. And this one, matchlock musket, please. Two matchlock muskets again
Oh yes,
from the
beautiful.
same period. Also beautiful. Look at the stock on them. Look at the decoration.
Yeah, and that
Really.
long stock for the method that they held it. Uh,
Yeah.
Now I'm going to make a guess here. I think the barrels on these are quite heavy
Yeah.
because they use the weight of the barrel to absorb the recoil. Because the particularly in northwest India into Afghanistan, long rifles were very well. Sometimes they were rifles, sometimes they were um, smoothbore. Were very popular because they had two advantages that people believe. Now, I'm not a gunsmith. I don't know whether this is true, but people believed it, which was that the longer barrel allowed more time for the
Yes.
powder to push on the bullet.
Yes.
Same way as a long drawer enables the bow to push on the
Yes.
arrow longer. And the
Yes.
other one is they thought it was more accurate. Now, current views are that muskets are not that accurate because a lot of muskets they made the ball quite small because the barrel got fouled by repeated shooting. So if you made a tight fit for the ball, you had to hammer it in.
Yeah.
And they started doing that when they had rifling because it became more accurate. But if the ball is loose in the barrel, there is a fair chance that it's not going to leave the barrel straight. It might
Yes.
bounce off the inside of the barrel and go that way, or bounce off and go that way, or bounce off and go that way, or bounce. But I think a Hungarian guy on YouTube I've seen, who has a channel about things like this, did a number of tests with smoothbore muzzle loading guns of the period,
Yeah.
and they were a lot more accurate than people thought.
Yeah.
And I think in America too, they've done a lot of tests with this kind of thing, and under well-controlled conditions, they were quite accurate.
Absolutely.
This is the gun of somebody very rich who had servants to make sure it was all cleaned and everything was fine, and
Yeah.
probably had the best powder that could be bought in his area and everything like
Yes.
that. I think these might have been a lot more accurate than we think. Not as accurate as modern rifles, obviously, but you know, they went
Yeah.
to a lot of trouble to do this. And these
Yeah.
are, I'm taking a guess, these are sporting guns.
Yeah.
Um, I wouldn't say for sure because people were quite happy to
Yeah.
take really elaborate weapons into battle
And this
because it was
is
a
a shield bearing
Mhm.
portraits of figures at the Lahore Durbar hunting scene, 1850 to 75, Punjab. And look at this
Mhm.
shield. Lee.
That's beautiful.
Oh, look how beautiful it is. And this guy is shooting. Look at this.
Yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. And look at the, yeah,
I was going to say,
beautiful.
notice how he's aiming along the barrel as any
Yeah.
modern person, but
Yeah.
he doesn't put the butt into his shoulder as you would with a Western gun. The butt
No.
is underneath,
Yeah.
and his hand is quite far back because the trigger is quite a long way down the butt. It's not right up near the lock
Yeah.
as it would be on a Western gun.
Yeah.
Um,
Look at the
he's
shield buckles. Also beautiful.
oh yeah, they look like either cabochon cut rubies or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Cut into
Beautiful.
shapes too. They're not just not rough polish, but teardrop shapes and what look
Yeah.
like flower shapes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
this is quite beautiful.
Beautiful. And now we come to this. Oh God, I really love this one. Turban
Oh,
Fortress, Lahore, Punjab, 19th century. My God, this is so beautiful.
well, there was yeah, was the thing that yeah, Nihang. Uh
Yeah,
uh they carried a whole series of weapons on their
yes,
hat. I mean,
exactly.
it's technically a turban, but it looks more like a
Yes,
hat.
yes.
And chakram, well, particularly well suited for this because you could have them in several sizes, so that the top ones.
Yes. Yeah, for
It's
Nihang, yeah,
it's just wonderful. I mean,
wonderful.
you can you can show off in various ways and prove your seriousness in various ways, but sometimes things are just a little bit whimsical. Uh,
So they
yeah,
say, look at this. For last, like in its construction, this Dastar Bunga is a towering version of the turban worn by Sikh warriors in the Nihang, crocodile, as we say in Persian, Nahang. It features a totemic steel centerpiece called Gajka. Okay, my pronunciation, apologies. Grappler of elephants and razor sharp steel daggers, also chakrams and tiger claws. The dark blue cloth spouting from the peak represented the Khalsa's battle standard, Farsla, signifying the wearer's rank as that of an Akali, immortal. It's unbelievable, so beautiful.
yeah,
It
yeah.
should weigh a lot, right?
Yeah. I well, they still sometimes people still wear these.
Yeah.
They still make them in the Punjab,
Oh,
and
the steel. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. This is not a dead art. This is and it'd be interesting if somebody who's worn one could actually write a comment and say what they were like.
Yeah, I love to. I hope we have many Sikh members, subscribers. I hope they're going to
Yeah.
contribute to that. Of
No.
course.
Oh, look, there's so much knowledge out there. It's
Yes.
well worthwhile
And this
encourage.
one is also beautiful. Nihang bodyguard serving in the Nizam of Hyderabad's irregular Sikh army.
Hmm.
Look at this. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. He appears to have a really see. He's got a kind of like stacked chakram type thing on his turban.
Oh,
Is
that's
that or is
true.
that a binding? I think it's a binding. It's because he's got that nice crescent there. You think is this a different version of that?
I don't know.
Uh
Yeah, good point. Let me
very
just
hard.
check here. Oh, yeah. Okay, you are right. This looks like this. Yeah, but a smaller version. Yeah.
Yeah. So that might be a standard thing for a Nihang to wear on his regular turban to show who he is. He appears to have a Firangi, the sword, the long
Mhm.
sword with the
Yeah.
basket hilt kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it looks like he's got a pistol under his armpit.
Yeah.
Um uh Probably there's somewhere around there there's a knife we can't see.
Yeah.
Um a fine mustache, uh a proper
Yes.
gentleman.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh But yeah, you wouldn't want to get into a fight with him either, I don't think.
Yeah. Very nice. And now, Sathu Singh Sodhi, sword of him, Punjab, 19th century. Look at this one.
Oh yeah.
Indian blade. You see that? Beautiful.
I will show you a sword very similar in a minute, except for the
Ah,
gold and the beautiful polish.
that's what
And
Beat was talking. Excuse me, I'm just for our subscribers. Beat was talking about that. And then the edge starts from here. Indian design. Beautiful
yeah,
Beat, isn't it? Mhm.
it is. In the
Nice.
hand, I think people look, I've got a small hand. Um Not tiny or anything, but it's
Yes.
not as big as yours, for instance. In the hand, these feel so good to me. You People talk about edge alignment so you know which direction the edge is going in. To me, these are perfect for that.
Mhm.
I find that the disc pommel, if you do a long draw cut and you're pulling back, that disc pommel stops the sword from moving about during the cut. Some people like use a kind of hammer type style with these swords, and they miss out on the advantage of the draw cut, which is very powerful.
Mhm.
I see bits of horse gear there, I think.
Yes, horse trappings also belong to Maharaja Ranjit Singh. or at least attributed Lahore, Punjab, early 19th century. Look at this. Beautiful, huh? I hope. Oh, no, I don't have more pictures, but take a look at that, please, Speed.
Yeah, yeah, that's really nice.
Mhm.
Again, the leather work is really solid
Yeah.
because it has to be on a horse. The I'm thinking that the isolated strap at the bottom might be part of a crupper.
Yeah.
But the main big strap with the big pendant leaves,
Yeah.
that could be a breast strap. I'm not sure. Without measurements, I mean, I can guess from the sword how long it is, and it looks a bit
Yes.
long for a breast strap, but
Yes.
I don't know. The bridle, the kind of bridle itself looks quite interesting too.
Very. Very. And now we go to pair of man's gloves, they call it, 19th century. This is good fashion, huh?
Oh yeah, this is well. I guess they don't go very far up the wrist though.
Yeah.
Which, again says that they're well, quite highly decorated. See, when you come from a culture that's really good at textiles,
Yes.
then there's a lot of things you can do.
Yes.
You can have things woven like that. Fabric might be woven band strip. That could be just a piece of normal fabric, but they weave it that way, and then you can reuse it. Aha!
And we go to Golden Throne of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, Lahore, Punjab. Hafiz Muhammad Multani made it. So he was a Muslim goldsmith, Hafiz Muhammad Multan, right? This significant throne is arguably the most iconic symbol of the Sikh ruler and his royal court. So it's very important artifact. Following the annexation of Punjab in 1849, the Court of Directors of the East India Company requested that the Governor General, Lord Dalhousie, ship the throne to London to be deposited in their India Museum. Constructed in the form of a lotus flower, its wooden structure has been covered all over in sheets of embossed gold, exquisitely worked with floral motifs and scrolling ornamentation relief. So a Muslim goldsmith, Hafiz Muhammad Multani, made it for Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is.
And for a man to sit cross-legged on, because we don't dangle our legs.
Oh, yeah, good point, good point. Take a look at this. Now you can see the exquisite nature.
Oh, that's incredible workmanship.
Incredible.
It's not just workmanship, it's design. It's the way of putting this together that really shows the brilliance of the people doing it.
Yeah,
and
unbelievable.
I mean, Multan is a fairly old Muslim city in the northwest of Hindustan, as it was called at the time.
Yes.
But it's famous for craftsmen and other things. It's quite a...
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. And think this is in the middle of the 19th century.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And this is on a par with the work for the Mughal emperors in the 16th century. People had not lost their skills.
No.
And different groups of people,
Yeah.
when they were able to flourish, could bring out, this has got bits of some designs, as they say, a lotus, like a lotus flower. Well, you imagine when the Maharaja is sitting cross-legged in that, at one level, maybe he looks like the Buddha, if the Buddha had a big beard. It's this kind of regal, but also kind of semi-religious thing that project the glory of the well, I mean, the Maharaja is a symbol of the country, so it's the glory of the country, not... Well, I mean, we look at this and think of it as a CEO of a corporation who's interested in his profit and his, profile, but a ruler of a country, when it's, a monarchy at this time anyway, and particularly in India and Iran and Turkey with the Sultan, they are trying to personify their nation.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's I mean, obviously they love the luxury and everything, like everybody does, but the more impressive they are, the more impressive their country appears to its neighbors.
Yes, absolutely.
And artistic quality is a thing that they were very proud of.
Very.
And good for them.
So inscribed sword of Colonel Mouton, Lahore, Punjab, 1835-45. So Colonel Francois Henri Mouton was a French cavalry officer in Sikh service who fought against the East India Company in the First Anglo-Sikh War. Also a beautiful one. Look at this sword.
Oh yeah.
What a beauty. Look at this.
See how delicate that Kofgari work is. They don't just hammer the gold onto the steel, but they mold it to give shape, and they probably do a little bit of surface engraving and everything.
Let me just, excuse me, I'll come back to it very fast. Excuse me, just a second. Yeah. I just wanted to see and compare it to the other one. Very nice. Yeah. Excuse me, I interrupted you. Go ahead, please.
No, but it's a good point, because see the difference. This one covers the whole surface. That one had the background showing through.
Yes, that's right.
Because it was a different design idea. Yes. Again, you can see a stamp just under the projection of the quilling block.
Yes,
which is probably the armory stamp or even the maker stamp.
Yes.
And again, a ricasso, and then a very defined edge.
And look at this. This is the Smith mark. Look at this. Could be, right?
Well, that's what I was talking about. That could be the Smith's mark, or it could be an armory mark saying this.
Armory mark. Okay, that's what you were talking about. Exactly.
Yeah. It could be either one. You'd have to read it to find out.
Of course. Yes.
But yeah, this is beautiful work.
And now we can see it thanks to Usman from both sides.
Yeah. Great curve on the blade.
Yeah, Indian blade. Very beautiful. Very beautiful.
Yeah. But that curve is close to European sabers, so for a Frenchman, this would be quite easy to use.
Yes, you're right. Exactly. Yeah. Good point. And now here we come to this one. This is also something beautiful. Ranjit Singh Bahadur. Oh, here they wrote in French, Roi de Lahore. So Ranjit Singh the Brave, King of Lahore, commissioned by General Ventura. Unbelievable. But General Ventura, it was commissioned a leading Italian officer. Seems that everyone was serving in India back then, in Sikh service.
Apparently the pay was good, and he was a good boss.
Exactly. All military advisors were there from different countries. While on leave in France, so it was likely based on a miniature painting by Imam Bakhsh Lahori. So the finished work, which subtly reflects the Gallic influence of the Sikh court through the presence of a tricolor, was presented to King Louis Philippe the first, sorry, I speak French again, as a mark of friendship between the two nation states. Sorry. So take a look at it. Now, so we have here Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Oh, he's having a bow. Look at this.
Yeah, he's got a bow. I think he's got a little kamcha in his hand as well, but I'm not sure. Oh, that could be just the bow. This might be the same bow.
Exactly. Just looks the same.
It's got the bindings, I think, are there.
Yeah, it is the bow.
And I'm guessing that under his arm, dropping down, is the quiver. See it?
Yeah.
In the front of his knee, that's probably a pistol holster for a horse pistol.
Yeah, you're right. Look at this, guys. I mean, our subscribers. Bede is right. This is the same bow we saw before. Where was that? Oh, where is that?
Oh, it's a long way back.
Long way back, right? Oh, yeah, long way back. Oh, here. That's it. That's the bow. Yeah, that's the bow he's holding. Maharaja Ranjit Singh is holding.
Yeah. And that quiver is very, except the quiver in the painting is gold embroidered rather than silver embroidered still. But you can see the and it's interesting the way he's holding it. He's resting it on his knee almost.
Yeah.
Which I've never seen anyone do, but that makes me think that it must have been in whatever the original portrait is. I've seen some saddles from this area that are just basically padding. They don't have a tree or anything. And they're heavily embroidered cloth.
And
they're very attractive.
And then the parasol, which is also a symbol, big symbol, was also in Mughal India, right?
Chhatri, is it?
Is it?
Chhatri?
What? Yeah, exactly. Chhatri.
Yeah, chat.
Right. Yeah, in Persian also chats, right.
Yeah.
And look at this guy, look at him. He's taking
Yeah.
it really seriously, holding it. Look at
Oh, yeah. You better do
dedicated.
that right, or you get into trouble.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
his horse is frothing at the mouth,
Uh,
just to show how
and a
spirited it is.
beautiful horse.
Yeah, yeah. I think Queen Victoria sent Ranjit Singh a set of coach horses that were basically draft horses,
Ah,
and with a gold coach, and he
ah,
said, if their horses are that big, how big are their elephants?
okay.
Uh, yeah.
So here we go to posthumous portrait of Maharaja Ranjit Singh commissioned by General Court. So it's Lahore, Punjab, 1841 to 2. So they say, our colleagues say this painting traveled from Punjab to France shortly after the Maharaja's death. It was commissioned by General Claude Auguste Court to illustrate his memoirs and shows the Lion of Punjab riding one of his favorite horses. I don't know if it's the same horse, anyhow. The European influence in the Sikh army can be seen in the uniform of his escort, right? Okay. And we can see the corner cartouches contain a poem in the hand of the artist painter painting Ranjit Singh. And this is written in Persian. Sarkar Hikmat Shahanshah Padishah. Oh, wow, it's in Persian. Yeah, that's right. I can read it. I can understand that. Yeah. Beautiful, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, it's interesting, this kind of combination of European and Indian style and Persian poetry as well, obviously.
Yeah.
The decorative border is very European. That oval with its little scrolls and things, but
Look,
the
in Persian, it says,
background. Sorry.
yeah, excuse
Oh,
me. Bahram در آن که نه پیرش آمد همه کش قبضه خنجرش. Bahram, the king Bahram of Persia,
yeah.
right? When he came
Bahram.
and his khanjar became all over, right? Like conquering. Beautiful Persian poem.
Yeah.
Really nice. This is like a conglomerate of different cultures here, right?
Yeah, I think well, this is the thing that we forget about the 19th century was in the whole of the Indian subcontinent, you had a conglomeration of cultures.
Yeah.
Because the Mughals, when they came in, the family was spoke a variety of Turkish, Chagatai Turkish, it's sometimes called, but the court spoke Persian.
Yeah.
The army, depending on which section of it, may have spoken Urdu or whatever the local language was. So you had this kind of total mixing, and people kept their individual,
Yeah. Yeah.
customs and things like that. But they also picked up things that they liked from other people's customs.
Yes. So let me just get out of this, please, because we are done with the pictures of this beautiful collection. So first of all, my special thanks to Usman again for having made all these pictures, taking them, and also to our colleagues from Wallace Collection for putting up such a beautiful thing. And just before we go on with the things you are going to show, to all Sikh subscribers, we try to use Maharaja all the time. Sometimes I forget and just use it without the title. It's not meant as disrespect. It's just because when I speak English, then or whatever language, Maharaja is always should be there. As someone pointed out, we are aware of that. Just wanted to mention that from our part.
Yeah. Well, to show respect, he was a very successful ruler, and he really impressed people who met him. People who met him were very impressed by his personality.
Yes.
So yeah, it's he certainly was a great king, Maharaja.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, Pete, what do you want to show us?
Well, we had a sword there, which had this type of hilt. Now mine has got silver on it.
Yes.
But you notice the knuckle guard doesn't actually touch the knob. Now this is actually quite a substantial sword. It's a bit rusty, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Oh, it made that ringing noise you're not supposed to be able to make pulling out of wooden scabbards.
I heard
Uh,
that. Yeah.
I'm just gonna we etched a little bit of the blade to show the pattern.
Mhm.
I'm just seeing which side is the best. It's this side. I'll try and get a
Oh, okay. Yeah.
so you can see it's pattern welded.
Yes, I can see that.
The hog's back mark, which is I'm resting this sharp blade on my finger. It's quite heavy. The hog's back mark is put on in India. It's not a European blade.
Yes.
Um, it has a quite a pronounced back edge. I'm just this is still quite sharp. The back edge is a little bit sharp, but they're generally not particularly sharp because
Mm,
uh they're it's
mm,
just not the way they made it. As you see, it's
mm.
that
Yes.
um
Beautiful.
it limits how far back you can
Yes.
you can't do that. That doesn't
Yes.
work. You can get to about there.
Yes.
Uh you can hook your finger over
Mm,
the quillen if you like, because it's blunt to
mm,
there. That from there
mm.
to there is blunt.
Yes.
Um
Yes.
it's uh
And the mark there, Mirza Lutfullah, the advisor, Persian advisor to the Mughal India court, who wrote Aid to Sight, my last book, he specifically talks about this blade mark, which they put
yeah.
in Indian blades. So just wanted to mention that. He really
Yeah.
describes the different shapes of it.
It
And so,
comes from a European mark in the 15th, 16th century.
yes.
Uh, See, we forget that India and Iran and Turkey were quite familiar with European weapons.
Yes.
Uh, and the Indians were quite happy to import European blades, because once the Europeans got up to um, like industrial production of blades, they could make them quite cheaply, and a cheap European blade was sometimes better than a medium Indian blade. I'm really trying not to cut my arm, and but the thing is that they like things to be really sharp. Now you see the curvature of that blade.
Yes.
Um, this is, I think, one of the blades that we tested on Sydney phone books
Mm,
by cutting the corners off them, and they're about that thick, dry, not wet.
yes.
And just with an ordinary draw cut, they would you didn't have to swing them hard or anything. They just cut straight through.
Mm,
This is Let me hold it out. Now, bearing in mind I'm nowhere near as strong as I used to be, but it's not hard to hold out. It's quite heavy when you're just holding it like this. I mean, we're talking about probably 1.2 kilos. I haven't weighed it. I don't know, but that's what it feels like. Um, it has on the back of the blade,
mm.
um, don't know if we can get this in, uh,
Yes, I can see
a
it.
number
Yeah.
and a letter in Devanagari or Gurmukhi.
Yes, I can
Uh,
see it. Yeah.
so this comes from the armory that this originally belonged in.
Yeah.
So it was numbered. There is what appears to be a couple of letters written in here on the blade. Only on that side. On the other side, no. You can see marks there from from the pattern welding,
Yes, I can see
because
it.
yeah. But
Mm,
I'd say it's about 5 millimeters at the base, then four
mm,
millimeters there, about 3.5. Then at the start of the false edge, it
mm,
tapers right down to
mm.
a cutting edge. Um, this blade is really strong,
Mm.
and I got this by accident. When I bought it, I thought it was just a plain steel blade, but a friend said, let's just try and etch part of the blade to see what it really is. And then it turned out to be pattern welded, which they made very strong blades, pattern welded blades. This, on the other hand, this is the more open grip with a big disc pommel, which a lot of people associate with the Sikhs and the Punjab. I don't know if that's true. That's what collectors thought. It's got floral silver Kafgari work on the handle.
I can see, yes. Beautiful.
Yeah. This one is this one is it's got a false edge. The false edge starts around about, wait a minute, I can do it by feel. About there. This is how it came. It was polished sharp. It's got has it got anything else? It's got a mark on each side, which I don't know. You can just barely see it there. It's like a little trefoil, like a leaf with three things on it. It doesn't have any indications that it's had any armory marks on it.
Yes.
That may be a maker's mark. I don't know. I've never really analysed this sword. It has less. You can see from the grinding of the edge that it does have a ricasso, but it's very thin compared to the other one. I mean, it's not sharp. You can push it hard. If I did that on there, I'd cut my finger. It's again, this is another one we tested on telephone books, and it just went straight through them. It's again, they're all balanced towards the tip, but they're not uncomfortable to hold out. You can swing them quite easily. You've got again limited wrist movement, so it moves from there to there. But when you combine that with your shoulder and your arm, you can get a really solid cut in. When you strike with one of these and you want to stop it quickly, you just turn your hand, and the weight of the blade, the curve of the blade, just stops it in the air. So it's in a kind of fencing sense, it's quite good. You notice the point is not really. You can stab with this quite successfully, but it's not really designed for stabbing. It would stab into flesh better than through padded garments, and it certainly wouldn't stab through mail. So these, I think the second sword I bought when I was about 22 years old, and in those days you could buy one of those for 80 Australian dollars. I don't think you can do that anymore.
No.
But this is Persian swords in Australia, for instance, were very rare. I only ever saw one for sale. And it had been somebody wire brushed the blade to get the rust off. So you would have had to completely repolish the blade and then etch it to find out what it was like. And I wasn't capable of doing that, and I didn't have the spare money to buy it. But one of my friends had some beautiful Persian swords, and you've seen photographs of them, or one of them anyway. So they did occasionally appear in Australia, but they were quite rare. But tulbas were quite common. I wouldn't say you'd see them everywhere. I bought that in a gun shop. It was just in the window. The first one I showed you, I bought it in an arms fair, an antique arms fair. And again, it was because it was, like unetched. Nobody knew it was pattern welded, so therefore they didn't think it was very valuable. I mean, this just happens because people handle these things. They come into Australia, not all of them. The largest majority of them came in through a large shipment of swords, but the other ones, often British officers from India retired to Australia, and they bought these various things as keepsakes of their time in India. So it does turn up. New Zealand is another place where things can turn up because quite a few British officers retired there as well. So this stuff is not common here, but it used to be around. I mean, nowadays there isn't really as many collectors, so you don't see it. And most collectors have got good stuff. When they want to sell it, they sell it in London, where there's a market.
The market
and if you're a person who's got a cultural connection to that, and you've got enough money, you'd go to London, because as they say, the British stole all the best stuff. And,
That's good.
Yeah. Well, this is
Okay, Pete,
culture.
thank you very much. Is there anything you
Yeah.
would like to add? That was beautiful talk today. And
Oh,
say,
yeah. Look, Maharaja Ranjit Singh was an amazing man. His career was against the odds kind of thing. Um, and he built a strong state when the most predatory nation at the time was right on his border. And he still managed to make a strong state. He managed to build a modern army
yes,
where everywhere else in India they had a great deal of trouble. Tipu Sultan did a good job,
yes,
but it was very difficult because the structure of how armies were raised and that was very different in India. And you got to give credit to people who achieve great things. And then he didn't lose the kind of his sickness
yes,
or his general feeling for Indian culture or the layers of Persian culture that were there too, so that um, he didn't turn into a kind of cardboard cutout copy of a European. He was a truly Punjabi Sikh
yes, yes,
um, person who really did a lot for his nation. I think it was one of the weird things that the British were so impressed by the Sikhs that after the mutiny, they recruited huge numbers into their army in India
yes.
because they were such good soldiers. So yeah, and a lot of that
Thank you.
goes back to him.
Thank you very much, Pete. I really appreciate it. And see you soon on our channel. Thank you.
Thank you very much.